think we're ready to get started. So I see quite a lot of you have come in already. So hello everyone and welcome to this masterclass for non-law students. We're delighted to be running this session for you on a very cold January Wednesday afternoon. My name is Dimitar and I'm a content and engagement coordinator here at Law Careers Net. I'm joined by some fantastic panelists from top law firms here this afternoon, and I'll get them to introduce themselves in a moment. We hope that you enjoy this masterclass and get involved by submitting your questions throughout. So the first thing I want to do is set out the aims of this masterclass. So by the end of this masterclass, you should have a clear overview of what you need to do about pursuing a legal career from a non-law background, understand the process of applying to law firms and going through the recruitment process, know about the conversion courses and how to qualify as a solicitor, and overall just get to know the benefits and advantages you can bring to a legal career from your non-law background as well. We'll come back to those aims in just a moment, but before we kick off with our panelists, I wanted to go over some house rules. So first, please use the online Q&A tool to post any questions that you have, and I'll be posing them to our speakers throughout the presentation. Please also use the chat tool to let us know if you have any audiovisual problems during the masterclass, and we'll be very happy to help. Please note that this masterclass will be recorded, the recording of which will be sent out to all registrants after the session, and it will be also available on our YouTube channel very shortly as well. And then finally, we have some fantastic masterclasses this term. Our next one is with BPP University on the 29th of January, and it's all about how to succeed at the SQE. So look out for that in the register. Look out to register for this. There will be a link in the follow-up email for this. We'll also be doing 2 more masterclasses with BPP University in February and March. So remember to check those out on the LCN events page as well. I'd also like to remind you that our virtual bootcamp for non-law students in collaboration with the University of Law is next Thursday, so make sure you sign up for that too, as it's specifically catered towards non-law students like yourself. You will get the chance to learn more about the conversion process and a lot more, and also network with some top law firms as well. The link to register for the bootcamp as well will be in that follow-up email, so look out for that as well and register. So, okay, I'm just going to start off by asking all attendees to please answer the question on the screen, so our panelists get an idea of who's joining us today. So there will be a pop-up on your screen that you can answer. So what stage are you currently at? Are you a first-year non-law student, second or third-year non-law student, a postgraduate student, or in work? So I'm just going to give you a few more seconds to get more votes in so we can get a good idea of everyone. Okay. Thank you everyone that's joining. I'm just going to share those results. So it seems we have quite a split. Most of 35% of you are second or third year non-law students, and then we sort of have an equal amount of first year non-law students and postgraduate students, and then 27% of you are in work as well, which is quite a good mix. And I would also like to run just one more poll with you before we get officially started. And that's all about to learn about what your biggest concern is at the moment. So please answer the poll on the screen. So what is your biggest concern as a non-law student? Is that how to make applications, how to research law firms? Are you concerned about not having legal experience, or are you not sure how to stand out as a non-law student in the recruitment process? Just going to give you a few more seconds. Okay, I think that's majority of you, so I'm just going to end the poll and share results. So it seems like most of you are worried about not having legal experience, and the second biggest worry out of everyone is to stand out as a non-law student in the recruitment process. We'll hopefully be able to help you and discuss this further and your concerns and address those during the masterclass itself. So thank you so much for answering these polls, and I think we're just about ready to get started. So I'd like to ask our panelists to please introduce themselves. So Imaani, if I can start with you, please.
Yeah, Thank you so much. So my name is Imani, and I work as the early careers advisor at Clyde Co. I've been at the firm for over a year now, and my job mainly is to cover all things UK recruitment related, from university attraction to programs, including our vacation scheme, our first year programs, and outside of London programs, and also the recruitment of our interviews for training contracts as well. So that's me.
Perfect, thank you. And Fabian?
Hi, yep, I'm Fabian. I'm a first seat trainee at Osborne Clarke. I did the SQE route here. I studied a non-law degree. I did anthropology. It was a while ago now, so I'm a career changer. I did market research before that, but yeah, in my first seat, Osborne Clarke, doing property litigation.
Thank you both. And yeah, just to get the ball rolling, as we have a lot to cover today, Imani, can I start with you and ask you to please talk about what do non-law students need to know about pursuing a legal career?
Yeah, great question to start off with. So, if you are a non-law student, the first thing I would say, as a blanket rule, is that you are in no way disadvantaged from coming from a non-law background. At Clyde and Co specifically, we really do welcome an equal split of law to non-law students. The main thing I would say is other things to think about is whether you are now considering pursuing the legal career, is having an actual understanding of what kind of skills and transferable skills you may already be practicing right now in your current stage of life, and how having that understanding of what every trainee looks like and what every trainee would do at each firm in terms of like the skills and qualities you need. They're the things that are like almost like your starting stones for knowing exactly what we expect from our trainees. But yeah, you are no way in any way disadvantaged. I would say that instead, what you should be doing is firstly looking at, okay, so what are the key skills of a lawyer, and also what is it about the legal career that I genuinely feel passionate about and I genuinely have a keen interest for. After that, I would say having a good understanding of the structure and timeline. So just knowing that if you are coming from a non-law background, most firms still do recruit tiers in advance anyway, but it's just having awareness that even from a logistical perspective, you do the postgraduate diploma first. So that's a conversion course, which is a PGDL, and then you also do after that the SQE as well. So it's just having an understanding of that too is really helpful as a non-law student. But I just want to reiterate that in terms of most firms now in the city as well, we really do welcome law to non-law. So
Perfect. Thank you so much. That's a great summary. And we'll come on to speak about transferable skills and SQE in the process later a bit in more detail. And then for my next question, I'd love to hear from both of you, but starting with Fabian, what would you say are what benefits are there but being a non-law graduate as a solicitor?
So I would say lots. And like Imani said, there really isn't, like, you're really not at a disadvantage having not studied law. But I study anthropology, and I guess I'll speak to having a humanities background within law. And I'd say that, like, well, the first thing that comes to mind is the ability to think laterally. When you're writing all these essays, especially in like subjects like history and anthropology, you're constantly having to link disparate topics. And I think that kind of mindset is especially valued today in the law firm, where everything is about how can we do things more efficiently, more innovatively, especially with the advent of AI. So you're kind of already building in those skills, which you can hit the ground running and start to contribute to those conversations in law firms surrounding innovation. Um, I think particularly in relation to anthropology, it's especially having done social anthropology, you're kind of more aware of cultural differences and you're more just aware to them in the workplace. And that is a big part of being a trainee, is working with all sorts of people from all different backgrounds. So that really has stood me in good stead. And I think just for all humanities, non-humanities, is your communication skills, not only when you're writing the essays, but when you're in tutorials and like arguing points, uh, doing presentations to the class. You're really building those skills which you'll be using day in, day out in your first seat, all the way through to qualifying and beyond. So yeah, I'll leave it there at those three.
Perfect. And Imaani, do you have anything to add to that? The benefits of being a non-law student?
No, I think it's just also remembering that you do bring in a fresh perspective, and I think it's also understanding that when you are coming from a non-law background, um, everyone from recruiters to assessors will understand that you wouldn't have had that prior knowledge or or some most times that prior experience as well. And just to also highlight that at Clyde Co, we don't actually look at a work experience in that way, and whether you have legal or non-legal work experience. Instead, we look at the strengths that you have as a person. So again, it's also very different firm on firm, but it's also very important to know like whether having legal experience before coming into the firm is a big advantage or if it isn't as well. But for us, it's not. So
Great. And kind of sticking on with you, I feel like you kind of touched on that at the start, but what would you say the key steps are the non-law student should take to transition into a legal career? So if you could like narrow it down, like the really key steps.
so in terms of the key steps, so I would say, firstly, just knowing what programs will be available to you and when. So, just to give you a little bit of a snapshot of our current programs and where non-law students would fall into that, depending on what stage you're at. So, we have something called Bright Futures. That's our first year program. Now, our programs for 2025 have now closed, but it's just something to keep in mind for upcoming cycles. So Bright Futures is our first year program, but it's open to first year law students and penultimate year non-law students. So if you are in your penultimate year of your non-law degree, then you can apply. And essentially, it's a sandwich version of a vacation scheme to the first year program. If you are applying for the vacation scheme, then we would recruit penultimate year non-law students and final year and penultimate year law students. So again, that's another opportunity for you to look into. And then also that's just London and Scotland alone, but there are other opportunities to look out for even as a non-law student. So for example, if you are looking at Scotland, they don't have a conversion course, so then you need to do the accelerated law, the LLB course. But in England, we do require the PGDL, and also our graduate solicitor apprenticeship instead of doing the PGDL, which is the conversion course that many trainees would usually have, we'd have a short course called Law Essentials. So these are kind of like stepping stones that you would have depending on the current stage you're at in your career or studies.
Perfect, thank you. And kind of speaking of transition into a legal career, Fabian, do you mind sharing what inspired you to pursue a career in law despite not having a law degree, and what your journey has been to become a trainee at Osborne?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I started off doing anthropology at uni, and originally I thought, okay, academia's for me. Went off and did like another extra masters, and then for whatever reason decided not to go down that route and said, okay, it's time to earn a bit of money. I did market research then for 4 years. So I was working with like the public sector, so doing surveys, focus groups, presenting them back to clients, the results back to clients, and I did that for 4 years. And then like the pandemic hit, and kind of stepped back from, well, had, I guess, a longer term look at my career and thought, okay, I don't want to be doing this market research anymore. And I've always had law at the back of my mind, and I knew it was similar. It's kind of very cerebral. You're going to have to be thinking a lot, which is something I really enjoy. And so I started applying for jobs with absolutely no legal experience, and I was surprised. I started getting through to the towards the end of the rounds, and I said, okay, so it is true that you don't actually need a law degree. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to make the jump and begin my conversion course. So I did the GDL, and at that time, the firms were humming and hawing as to which route they wanted people to do, LPC or SQE. So when I started my GDL, I was thinking of doing the LPC, but then by the end of the GDL, the firms were saying, okay, you're probably going to need to do SQE too if you did LPC. So I said, okay, I'll just do SQE. So yeah, did the SQE. That's a whole nother topic. And then started at Osborne Clarke, not immediately, but the next year because they needed my results first. But I believe that situation's changed now. So yeah, it was kind of a long road to law, but yeah, no regrets for sure. And yeah, I am using my brain a lot. So good, thumbs up.
Great to hear. Okay. And so kind of moving on to speak more about the research process and finding out key information, they've been kind of sticking with you as a non-law student. How did you get information about a legal career and how did you research firms?
So yeah, I think it started off with like word of mouth, just asking people at university who I think they're in my halls. They happen to have studied law, and I just rang them up and said, "Oh, how's it going now? You've been working in law for a few years," and they gave me kind of the lowdown of what it's like, the good and the ugly, and it didn't put me off. And then beyond that, just also speaking to like uh, friends of friends who knew someone who was slightly higher up in law firms and getting a slightly more senior perspective. So that was really like the first kind of when I had absolutely no idea about how to approach it. And then from those conversations, I kind of started to realize there's all these resources out there, like law careers, and Legal Cheek was another huge one that was really useful. And just I started just I remember setting up an Excel and just being super OCD about it all, listing all the firms, having all their like deadlines for applications. Do they do internships? Do they do vacation schemes? Because every firm has slightly, well, it's very nuanced in their applications, and you have to kind of keep on top of it. So yeah, had my Excel ready to go. I was kind of had like I did a column for like what makes them unique and like how to what are their values? How am I going to tailor the application to that one? Um, so yeah, legal using that, and then Legal Cheek, Law Careers. I think also using Legal 500 just to kind of get an idea of what kind of are these firms in Magic Circle, and then working out what kind of work-life balance I want. Do I want to be going for the top tier like Magic Circle? Do I want to be going a bit lower down in the Legal 500? And then slowly getting more and more information, and then just going to talks like this and networking, beginning to speak to actual people who are working at the firms I want to go and work with, getting a feel for what they're like, and just yeah, following my gut as to which firms I think I would do well at and which firms I think the people I would get on well with, and then making those applications. So it was it's quite a big process. It was almost like having a job in and of itself, researching all these law firms. Um, so yeah, you really need to, I'd say, be open-minded. Make sure you're using lots of different resources because each resource has slightly different takes on analysis of firms, and then combining it all together and yeah, making those applications.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, it sounds like you had a really good strategy and obviously it paid off, so that's great. And yeah, it can be overwhelming with a ton of information to learn about. And just a bit of a shameless plug about law on Law Careers Net. We have a non-law hub specifically catered towards non-law students. So there's a ton of stuff that you can learn. So definitely check that out. But Imani, I wanted to check with you if you wanted to add any other resources you would recommend.
Yeah, so I would say that, to be fair, Fabian, you kind of mentioned quite a lot of resources anyway. I would also direct that at Clyde Co, we do actually have a commercial law program as well that you can do on our website. So that could be a good resource. And other resources could be, I mean, the FT News, the firm's websites, being able to also The Economist as well. Like these are even podcasts. Like our firm does have a podcast, so there's definitely so many different types of resources. But I think it's mainly more important is the way that you tailor your research. So you won't be able to become an expert at everything, but maybe making sure, like I usually say, to start off with a website, see what really interests you, see what fascinates you, and then use that as a way of building the blocks to your research then after.
Great, and I believe Clyde Co has insight events that the students can attend. Or
Yes.
they just
So
finished for this
yeah,
year.
they
But
unfortunately have finished
yeah,
for this year, but we do have a lot of insight events, and they're not just tailored to non-law or law students, which is really great because that just again it shows that there isn't a difference. So whether you are come from a law degree or a non-law degree, you can still apply for any of our insight events when they reopen.
that's great. And Fabian, kind of leading on to what we kind of spoke about in your research, how do you research practice areas and find the one you're actually interested in?
Yeah, so I think, yeah, just almost reiterating, it's, yeah, speaking to people, because you'll get tons of information that way, but you'll also pick up on, if it's a lawyer working in, say, tax, you'll get a very different answer as to what their work is like than if you speak to someone who's in like litigation. They're two different types of people, even though they're both lawyers. They have very different takes on the laws. They'll share some core skills, but they'll just give you very different answers. And by speaking to these people, you can kind of, obviously, without doing the work itself, you won't know what you like. You won't know what you enjoy, but you'll begin to get a kind of almost like a gut feeling of where you think you would want to go. So that's really useful. Um, a lot of firms have practice area newsletters, which I remember a lot of them being tailored for like actual clients who are in that practice area. But then you can sign up yourself and then read as to what kind of all these law firms are offering, say within the private wealth area. You can see kind of what's happening there, and you can learn about what the key issues are. And that's actually really good for commercial awareness. And I actually didn't do this, but I heard like towards the end of my like the third year of applying for applications, I remember someone saying that, oh, you should check out the Forage. And I think they offer like half day like work experiences within specific practice areas, and you can like filter, say, by, okay, I'm really interested in like corporate law, and then you can go off and you'll get linked, I think, with a firm who will then send through work for you to do within like half a day, and then you send it back. And it gives you a little taster of what it's like without having to actually go through a huge rigorous application process. Um, but I don't know, I haven't actually done it. I don't know the ins and outs, so that's just what I've heard. And then again, as Imaani said, just like the firm websites, really good resource. They've all got, well, a lot of them seem to have podcasts, and there's just, yeah, there's so much out there now.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, these are all great resources. So attendees, I highly recommend you take note of those. And I thought we can briefly touch a bit on the qualification process. So if Imaani, if I can come back to you, it's kind of, I think you've kind of spoken about the SQE and the conversion, but can you kind of
Mm.
run the attendees through the training and qualification process for non-law students specifically with the SQE?
Yeah, of course. So, just to make you all aware as well that for our UK prep, each jurisdiction will be different when you are a non-law student. So, I think what I will do first is start off by kind of detailing our SQE as it is, and just like whether, let's say, for example, hypothetically, you have just completed our vacation scheme either in London or Scotland. Now, if you have just completed our vacation scheme in London and you are a non-law student, then this means that the next step would be after you graduate would be to start the PGDL, which is the postgraduate diploma in law. Now, that course is 9 months long. And it does start in September. So usually we only have been doing our vacation schemes in summer of recent years. So if you have then at that point graduated, then you would then apply and be enrolled to our PGDL, which is with the University of Law. Now that is, like I said, it's a 9 month postgraduate um, qualification, and that would be where you'd be attending classes full-time in at the University of Law. You'll also be with other cohorts from other firms who are also doing the PDDL. You'll also receive a maintenance grant, and your solicitor fee and your studies, would also be paid for. So let's say after you've done your 9 months of the postgraduate diploma of law, which is a PDDL, you've done the conversion course. Now you're ready to start the SQE. Now the SQE is a year-long program. So then the first 9 weeks and that usually starts in September. So in the first 9 weeks you would do SQE1, and then you'll have in January exams for SQE1, and then you'll start SQE2, which is more the practice side of the SQE, which will be another 5 weeks, and then you'll also then have the SQE Plus program for another 12 weeks. And then you would be qualifying at that point. So it is essentially, and all this happens before you actually start your training contract. But Fabian may also mention that it's a great opportunity because you do get put into classes with other firms as well, so that you do actually get to connect with students from other law firms. So you aren't necessarily isolated doing the SQE by yourself, for example. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think also mindful that the last couple of years with the lift of COVID, we are going back to in-person classes. So that's something you would be expected to do unless asked otherwise. So yeah, that's kind of essentially the life cycle post vacation scheme for a non-law student.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And speaking of vacation schemes, I think it's a great idea to move on to discuss a bit of a core area of the qualification process. So that will be vacation schemes, training contracts, working experience. So Imaani, kind of like starting with you on that section. How can non-law students get legal experience, and do you need legal experience to apply?
You don't need legal experience to apply. So at Clyde, instead, what we look for is we use a strengths-based recruitment, which basically is very different to competency-based recruitment, where with competency-based questions, you're usually asked, tell me about a time when you've shown this skill and tell me about a time when you've shown that skill. With strengths-based recruitment, instead, we're looking at internal skills that you already have and how well you would essentially practice that skill. So for example, the skill of collaboration, whilst you can obviously include examples from the past, you won't be penalized if you don't have an answer or an example that's very much legal related. You can either have it to do with hospitality, you could do it with business, fashion, retail. Remembering that when it comes to being a non-law student, the biggest thing that you need to grasp is your commercial awareness and understanding that whatever firm that you do apply for, they're essentially a business. So you need to think about how will this business make money? And that would be the main kind of questions I would ask if I was at that stage. So in terms of work experience, going back to the question around work experience, you don't necessarily need legal work experience, but instead you want to look at whatever you've been exposed to today, whether that's through hospitality, whether that's through fashion, whether that's through retail, whether that's through any kind of form of experience, whether it's unpaid or paid, is instead looking like what are the skills that you need as a lawyer, and how are you exhibiting them basically, and how frequently do you do that particular skill.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, it's moving on. I would like to get Fabian's input on this as he's recently been through that journey. So, Fabian, what work experience did you have before applying? Was it do you have any legal? Was it all non-law? And how did you kind of talk
Yeah,
about that in applications?
yeah, all non-legal, which I think was fine for pretty much all firms. And I remember in interviews, well, I'd prepped for these interviews, and my prep, I'd kind of gathered all together like different examples. So at university, I was part of the tennis society, so I was treasurer in that. So I spoke about like getting sponsorship for the team and everything to do with that, and then also spoke about a time when I'd worked at a website designing company and a time when I was doing work for like a bird life conservation charity. So all these random examples, but so long as you kind of make them persuasive, structure them using I think it's called the STAR method, the situation, task, analysis, result. As long as you basically structure it really well, and it's persuasive and speaks to the firm and their values, it's going to be a good answer. So yeah, no legal experience, and just anything that kind of I could weave in. So my 4 years in market research was really helpful. Actually, just having this big bank of answers which I could kind of go to when someone was saying, "Name a time where you overcame a challenging obstacle." I could immediately think, "Okay, this one is best." And then if there's a follow-up question that's kind of, "Oh, I've just used that example that I normally use," you have a bank of questions ready just to pluck out.
Cool. Perfect. Thank you so much. And Imani, going back to you, can you please run through like the basics of a vacation schemes, what it entails, and should non-law students be looking to get one now, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. So depending on what year you're currently in, and also just to again highlight, unfortunately, our program for this year have now closed. However, it's also very important to know how quickly the year goes. So when September comes again, you'll be able to at least know which program would you be most eligible for. So as earlier said, we do have the Bright Futures program. This particular program is for first year law students and second year non-law students. That particular program is essentially a sandwich course or version of the vacation scheme. So it's only a week long, whereas our vacation scheme is 2 weeks long. But in that week, you do get given a series of different department sessions and skill sessions. You also get interviewed at the end for the vacation scheme. So that's a very good opportunity to get involved if you are in your penultimate year of your non-law degree. Now, if you are in your final, if you are also in your final year of your law degree, I mean non-law degree as well, then you can also apply for our vacation scheme. Now, the vacation scheme is great, mainly because it's firstly our main form of recruitment for our training contracts. So if you are living in the UK, especially in London as well, our London vacation scheme is the most popular. Now, if you are at that stage, then we essentially take you through a 2 week program at the firm. And in those 2 weeks, you sit in two different departments. And then at the end of the program, you get interviewed for a training contract. It is a completely paid scheme as well. And we pay £550 a week, and we do cover travel reimbursements up to £150. And you do have a series of essentially working as a trainee as closely as possible within those 2 weeks. And you also get to attend many fun socials as well with the team. So that's essentially what a vacation scheme is. And I do think that, like, depending on the year you're currently at, very important to start considering it. And like I said, it is the most popular route to obtaining a training contract. We do have other routes that and it, like, let's say for example you're in Scotland, then we do have the Scotland vacation scheme, but it's important to know you don't do the LLB, but you do an accelerated LLB. And also in terms of PGDL, there's other equivalents in different opportunities. So for example, the graduate solicitor apprenticeship that's on the casualty qualification pathway route, they don't have a PGDL, but instead they use law essentials. So it's just very important to also remember that as well for like lingo reasons.
Great, thank you. And then coming back, Fabian, to you, I'm not sure if you did a vacation scheme yourself or not, but kind of can you talk a bit more about how you spoke about non-law experience in your applications? What kind of transferable skills did you showcase?
Yeah, so I did do the vacation scheme at Osborne Clarke. I did a couple others at other places. But I did, so Osborne Clarke actually applied direct, and then I was directed by the the HR team that they only really take from the vacation scheme, or 99%. So they said, we'd really think you'd benefit from the vacation scheme. So they just twisted my arm. So I ended up going on that one as well. But some firms, it's quite an open route, and I did apply directly, and I'm not sure if it's harder or more difficult, and it's hard to judge whether or not you should be making applications directly or going on the vacation scheme, because every firm like has their own attitude towards the two paths. But I ended up doing a mixture, and some I got really far on through both of them, but didn't quite make it. Um, but yeah, so the vacation scheme was really useful. Once you're on it, you essentially get to like see how the firm works, and they give you some like samples of work to do. And then at the end of the vacation scheme, you're given like a proper interview. And I think if you have done the vacation scheme, there's a bit less pressure on that final interview because they've already assessed you throughout the whole week, and it's kind of just like almost like a mop-up session. They say, okay, how did you find it? So it's more of a chat as opposed to going in cold, and obviously they make you feel welcome, but it's almost like you have to sell yourself a bit harder in that interview if you haven't got a week of work of the vacation scheme behind you. Yeah. Does that answer all your questions? I can't remember
Yeah.
what your question was now. Sorry.
Yes. Yes. I'd like to stick with you for one more at the moment, which
Yeah,
is
sure.
kind of speaking about Osborne Clarke, and what is your experience currently on a training contract as a non-law student? Ex-law student,
Like,
non-law student.
yeah. So it's kind of because I'd done so much research, it was a relief to find out it was what I expected. So yeah, I mean, how is it? I can't really say my experience as a non-law student is too different to like my colleagues who've done law. We're all kind of in the same. We've all done the SQE now, and we're all kind of first year trainees, and we're basically neck and neck doing the same tasks, often using those communication skills that we've built up, either through doing a law degree or outside of law, or doing it through a non-law degree. Um, so yeah, beyond communication skills, I think that's a huge one really, and just it helps you deal with like clients and just your colleagues as well. You know how to kind of hold professional conversations, and all your writing skills as well. Your emails are a huge part of the job, and being able to write well, having practiced it for 3 years through a degree and through 4 years of market research, means there is a reason why they picked you. It's because they can see the skills you've already developed, and then you can hone them further and kind of really thrive in the training contract.
Great, thank you. And Imani, with the risk of kind of repeating ourselves, uh, how would you say uh, uh, non-law students can demonstrate their commitment to law in applications from your experience, what you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in terms of showing your commitment to law, I think it's also the level of research and the depth of research you have and that you do when it comes to each firm application. Like we understand that it's a very competitive process, so we do understand that you might be applying to more than one firm, but I think it's important, even if you come from a non-law background, to really show that you've taken the time to really research what makes that particular firm different. So understanding like the firm's key specialisms, understanding the firm's clients, understanding how the firm operates for its legal clients, and also as a service firm as well. These things do definitely help even if you come from a non-law background. I think also commercial awareness, like building your can you all hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear.
Oh, okay. Dimitar's just gone frozen, that's fine. But yeah, like I think in terms of I've lost my train of thought now. Depending on wherever you are currently in your career, it's also important when it comes to commercial awareness to understand that we are a law firm and essentially we are here to also make profit. So really understanding that is also very important too.
I think we're back. I'm not sure what happened.
No worries. I don't
Sorry to
know how.
interrupt you.
No, that's absolutely fine. I think I kind of covered my answer. I don't know if you want me to repeat myself or.
I think hopefully it didn't cut off too early, but I'm sure. Amazing. And kind of speaking of applications, earlier, Imani, you mentioned some of the key transferable skills that non-law law students and
Mm,
candidates
mm,
are expected to demonstrate in their applications. What would you
yeah.
say the key skills are that you look
So
for?
every yeah, I would say every firm is slightly different with how they word it, but generally the key skills are attention to detail. So like how well can you really make sure that you are looking at things again and again and again so there's no mistakes. I'd also say collaboration, so working as a team, coming to a joint conclusion, coming to a joint result that will be for the betterment of your client or your stakeholders or your team is really important. Commercial awareness is a very, very, very important skill. And also like knowing how to really individualize, for example, clients and like the firm that you work for in terms of what they do and what they're currently looking at and how they're going to be moving forward. These are all really key skills. Another key skill would be persuasion. So like the idea that like how do you essentially get, if let's say that you're in a group of people and you guys have different views, how do you come collectively to one decision? So these are kind of some of the key skills I'd highlight.
Great, thank you. And kind of now that you mentioned commercial awareness, I feel like it's quite important
Mm.
for us to chat about a bit. So I'll start off with Fabian first. Fabian, how did you research and how did you find out more and become more commercially aware? And how did you apply that to your applications?
Yeah, so I think yeah, the Financial Times, I had access to this through university, and I think I did the SQE and GDL at ULaw, and they had a free subscription, and that was great because it's not just a newspaper. You can kind of, well, it is, but you can then tailor like your alerts to your inbox. So if you're interested in a particular area, like say you can tick legal, and you can there's so many areas. So if you're interested in net zero and like energy, you can get all the FTs like daily updates. Daily is probably a bit much, but every week, just keep on top of it. So essentially, as I was doing my applications, I think you can't build commercial awareness like the week before an interview. You have to have built that up over the course of a year, 2 years, and just keep it ticking over. It's one of those skills where you've just got to be kind of dipping into the news daily, and then maybe doing a bit more something in depth at the weekend, or obviously don't do it like take holidays and when you're ill, but make sure like you've been building it up so that when you have that interview question, which is, say for instance, what do you think of net zero, or do you think all firms are going to be pushing towards that? You can actually talk about it, and then you can kind of think back over the past year. By the time you've done a year worth of research, you've got tons of examples you can immediately speak about. And even if the question's one like a lot, it could be something completely throws you. You just find a way to weave in to that huge bank of knowledge you've built up. And if you can do that, you're in a great place. So yeah, news resources, especially ones like the FT, which give you like alerts to your inbox. I found those really useful. Um, Also, just like a basic understanding of economics. Like for the longest time, I didn't really understand what inflation or interest rates were. And I remember buying like a small book on it just to get my head around it. And once I knew what it was, it's like, okay, this is simple. And then I could begin to read the news, all the headlines where I'd previously been like, I don't know what on earth that means, interest rates are rising. I could read it and be like, oh, so that's what that means. And then you can kind of start to unlock all these other articles in relation to, especially in the business section of BBC News. You can kind of see, okay, interest rates are rising. This is the impact on this sector. And then you kind of gradually get more and more into it. So I definitely just say it's something you need to start a little bit every so often.
Amazing, thank you. And Imani, do you have anything to add in terms of like resources for commercial awareness, how to build it, and obviously in terms of applications as well, how to demonstrate it? Because I think that's quite a big one.
I would say that, I mean, to be fair, I think Fabian actually did go through most of the resources. I think in terms of how to demonstrate that in, let's say, an assessment center or let's say a digital assessment test or simulation test, is also remembering that any question that you are getting asked, you want to have this awareness that it will inevitably be connected to the whole idea that law firms are businesses and law firms do need to make money and do need to make their clients money as well. And that's essentially where the business side of it comes. So, for example, let's say that you are given a fictional scenario, and let's say you're doing a role play exercise for an assessment center, you will still be expected to consider what the client's needs are and the client effects are. Same if, let's say, for example, you are given a group exercise, and let's say that in those group exercises, you each have an area of the scenario that you have to analyze and look into and also convince others why, let's say, your position would be better to move forward to. That's still going to have commercial considerations there. So it's always looking at, okay, do you have an awareness of who the client is that the solicitor is trying to support? If you don't have an idea of who the client is, could you get an idea of maybe through, let's say, the work that we do or our clients, what would be our priorities and how have we shown that, or how do we come across as very trusted advisors? So that's also really important. I'd also say, like I said, we do have a course online on our website that's absolutely free, where you can brush up on your commercial law. So that's something also to look into. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Amazing, thank you. And another question that well, someone's asked in the chat, which I think will be quite a quick answer, is can a postgrad non-law student apply for a vacation scheme?
Unfortunately for Clyde Co, no. I'm not sure about Osborne Clarke, but for us, you unfortunately, if you are a non-law student, you have to be still within your within university years. We don't allow postgrad students unless that's for the London Vacation Scheme. But if you do want to apply for a Bristol training contract, you would have had to have done the conversion course for the year that you're applying. So, for example, when our applications were open for our Bristol training contract 2025, you would have had to have completed your PGDL by September 2025. So that's something just to consider as well.
Amazing. Kind of going off of that, do you have any advice for career changes? Because I saw that some people at the start of the masterclass did say they were currently in work.
Yeah, I would say we definitely do recommend career changes. Anyone from any walk of life, to be honest. I think it's mainly looking at your transferable skills. I know that someone said about whether you have like any family or friends or anything like that in law. You don't have to have that. You are not going to be assessed on what you have done to date in terms of work experience. Instead, you're going to be assessed on how, if someone was to put a scenario in front of you, how would you react? In an hypothetical manner. So yeah.
Perfect. And Imaani, kind of sorry, sticking out with you for this next question and the topic of degrees. And are there any degrees that you would say are better suited to converting to
No,
law when you come from
no.
any degree?
Any and every degree would be welcomed because it comes with different skills. So yeah.
Great, thank you.
No
And
worries.
Fabian, kind of moving to you, what would you say are the biggest challenges non-law students face when entering the legal profession, and how can you overcome them?
I think I just I'd guess I'd challenge again that breakdown between law and non-law once you're actually at the firm. There's kind of it's not even a thing really. Like I've faced the same challenges as my trainee buddies who have done law for undergrad. There really isn't honestly any difference. And if you're like having a chat with the partner, often when you mention that you did non-law, they're immediately like, "Oh, so what did you do?" And you've got a nice little small talk, which is often quite useful when you're speaking to senior partners who are super busy. You can kind of break the ice. But yeah, in terms of challenges as a trainee, um, just getting used to all like it's just the small things really. Like they've hired you for a reason. Like they know you've got the skills. You've done the interviews and said you've done all these experiences proving like you can write well, you can speak well, you've overcome difficult situations, and then it's kind of more just getting used to like how the team works and finding out where to store your stuff because they know you've got the skills already. So for me, I think the biggest challenge was just getting to know everyone, like how to basically do the day to day. And yeah, so far so good. I think you're on mute, Dimitar.
Thanks so much for that. I thought I clicked that, but I didn't. So yeah, kind of sticking with you for this question from someone from the attendees. They're wondering. They thanked you for sharing your experience, and they were wondering how long did it take you from deciding to go into law, completing your PG, the course and SQE to starting your first role in law, and did you study full time or did you keep working while completing your qualifications?
So I initially was like, so I started doing the jump as I was working in market research, and I was doing applications whilst working, and I was getting pretty far. And then I remember it was like the first round of applications had gone by, and I got really far, but I didn't get anything. And then I decided, okay, let's just make the jump. Basically, I didn't want to work in market research anymore. So I said, okay, I'm just going to self-fund. I was in a very fortunate position to be able to do that, and so yeah, I did the GDL, and then did that. That gave me time to do a whole, because working while studying and applying for applications is a huge, that is a lot of time. So by being able to study full time, doing the GDL gave me that time to actually apply for all these jobs. And then, so I did the GDL, and then I went into the SQE, and I got my offer halfway through the SQE. And then I wanted to start immediately as soon as the SQE was over, but Osborne Clarke said, "Oh, we need you to have your results before you start." So I managed to bring forward the 2 year gap, which is normally a thing. I managed to bring it forward 1 year, and then for that year's gap before working, I actually just worked in a cafe for that year. It was quite kind of a nice break from having a desk job. So I did that, and it also obviously pay the rent. So yeah, in terms of number of years, it was GDL 1 year, SQE another year, then that year in the cafe, and then I started. So 3 years. But I think now you at Osborne Clarke, I know that you can immediately start after doing the SQE. They've changed that now, so it could just be 2 years and then you start. But that
Great.
was full time. Sorry, let me add, that was full time.
No worries. Yes. Thanks for sharing. And Imaani, someone has asked a question about applications and what's a common mistake that non-law students make during applications. So is there anything that's sticking out, particularly for non-law students, that they're not necessarily
Not
doing quite?
necessarily, no.
Mhm.
I do feel like the kind of quote unquote mistakes that maybe candidates do get are not actually something that's limited to non-law or law students. I think some of the common mistakes that students do make is failing to really tailor their applications to Clyde Co. So just as an example, we specialize in insurance. We do obviously offer a multi-service firm, and we do cover a lot of other areas of law, but we are extremely heavy on insurance, and like key facts like that are things that students, whether they come from legal or non-legal backgrounds, do tend to miss. Other things that I would say is maybe another indicator is learning and understanding the skills of a trainee and things, for example, attention to detail. That's something where it's a very key skill as a trainee, but that we see lack even at application stage. So and we do have a written exercise as part of our assessment process during the assessment center. So again, it's really important when we don't see, like when we see too many spelling grammars, that's like grammar mistakes, that could be also a reason for that. So yeah, that's what I would say is like the common errors right now. And I also, sorry, one more thing I'll say is that during an interview, sometimes candidates just simply do not go into enough detail. So that would be my third, I guess, observation.
Perfect. Thank you. And kind of wrapping up a bit, I would like to get your thoughts from both of you. So starting with Fabian, what advice would you give to non-law students interested in pursuing a legal career?
I would say definitely do it. Remember that you don't have to do a law degree. Enjoy your non-law degrees, because they'll probably be super interesting. And I would just remember that you can join law at any stage, and these firms are all open to having slightly older trainees. And yeah, just go for it for sure. Like, yeah, don't let it stop you at all.
Imaani, what would your advice be? Oh, you're on mute, sorry.
Sorry, I would say that when it comes to final piece of advice, even though you come from a non-law background, firstly, just understanding that you are not coming from any disadvantage from being there. And the main thing that people really need to, I guess, really focus on when it comes to the application process is understanding what are the key, what's the key differences between how one firm recruits to another firm. Like I mentioned, we do at Clyde Co use a strengths-based recruitment format rather than a competency-based recruitment format. And there's loads of resources on our website in the Learning Hub that kind of, again, demystify what does strengths-based recruitment means. But that's like the first step. The second step I would say is that when it comes to looking at the application you want to apply for, you want to make sure that you have a full understanding of the role of a trainee, the skills of a trainee, how that trainee would work on a day-to-day basis. And then on top of that, afterwards, it is about having commercial awareness and being able to bring it all together.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm just conscious of time, and I see we have 5 minutes left, so I'm just going to run a quick poll, a final poll, to kind of come back to the aims that we outlined at the start of the masterclass and to get an idea of what our attendees have taken from this session as well. So I'm just going to pop that on the screen for everyone to see. So if you could please answer, what's your key takeaway from today? Are you feeling more confident about pursuing a legal career as a non-law student? Would you say you know how to transition into a legal career, or do you know more about what kind of work experience you need, or something else? I'm just going to give you a few more seconds. Okay, perfect. Thank you, everyone who's voted. I'm just going to share those results. So it seems about half of you are feeling more confident about pursuing a legal career as a non-law student, which is great to hear, as this is obviously one of the aims. And then it's a bit of a mixed split between you feeling confident about and knowing how to transition into a legal career, knowing about the kind of experience that you need, or the kind of non-legal experience they might not need. And a lot of you have also learned about resources that you can use to research firms and boost that commercial awareness as well. So thank you for that. It's great to see what you've taken from this session. Before you go, just another reminder to attendees that we'll be sending out a link containing the recorded session. So please keep an eye out for that. A survey will also be popping up once this masterclass has ended. So please fill that in to let us know how you enjoyed today and what other topics you would like to see us cover in the future. We'll also be sending out a link to our next masterclass and a reminder again, our non-law bootcamp for the University of Law that we recommend you definitely check out, especially as a follow-up to this. I think it'll be a great opportunity to also speak to more firms and find out and apply some of the advice you've taken today for research. And yeah, thank you, Sarah, very much once again to our panelists, Fabian and Imaani, for attending today and giving us some great insights. We look forward to seeing you again in the future. And remember that all our masterclass can be found on Law Careers Net's events page. Thank you all.